Jennifer Cordingley, and this is the final targets and focus for this week. A string of disappointing data from the US this week gave the euro extended gains against the dollar. I'm joined down the line today by Jarratt Davis, professional FX trader at Independent Portfolio Managers Limited, to give me his predictions on three currency pairs. Jarratt, thank you for joining me today. What effect has the data released this week had on currencies?
Well, yes. I mean, you can see basically what happened in the news. We had the ECB President Draghi. He basically came out and said that the markets have basically undervalued the euro, and that the ECB are going to do whatever they can to bring it back to where it needs to be. And obviously that brought on a rally of over 200 points on the euro, and actually pushed the value of it way back up. In fact, bringing about all the gains, all the losses that it's had over the last few days, probably the last week. It kind of made back as it pushed it back up to like 12300 area. So it has, and then the US data that came out, it wasn't particularly positive. All those things that basically have combined, and the euro actually is looking quite strong. Looking at the euro dollar specifically, what are your short-term predictions? Short term, we're looking probably 12000 is a solid base of support as the price moves down. I mean, we've had the rally today, but we're looking for that as probably a floor for those downward moves. It's a 2-year low, it's a big psychological level, and it could be an area where we see the short traders taking their profits off, which of course could send the price back up in the form of a retracement. So short term, we are bearish, but with kind of 12000 as a base. What are your mid-term predictions for the euro dollar and why? Well, mid-term, I think a lot of traders, us in particular, we're looking for, like I say, 120 to hold as a base. I think that the 120s in general would kind of range. We expect to see the euro dollar range in that area. So come down to 120, then move back up into the 120s. But I think generally it will hold in that kind of range, the 120s. I don't expect it to break 120 mid-term, and we don't expect it to have any significant kind of rally either. So kind of just hang around in that area. And finally, what are your long-term predictions? Well, long-term outlook for the euro, at the moment it's not very positive at all. Again, we're fully expecting the price to get down to the 12000. Eventually, long-term, probably maybe next year, 2013, first or second quarter, we expect that level to actually break to the downside as more and more negative sentiments release. In terms of the long-term for the euro dollar, the absolute key to this is the core issues that are causing this bearish movement need to be resolved. If the policymakers in Europe can come up with something to fix those issues, then we could see a change in sentiment on the euro and the value to go back up. But until that happens, effectively the price is just going to keep dropping long term. You mentioned there that the European Central Bank President Mario Draghi pledged to do everything he could to save the euro. Has this had an effect on the dollar? The euro strength obviously pushed the dollar, caused a dollar sell-off. And that was actually happening quite across the board. It wasn't just the euro dollar that reacted to that. It was the pound dollar, the dollar Canadian. There was a strong dollar sell-off off the back of that, yeah. What are your short and mid-term predictions for the pound dollar? Well, again, generally the outlook's negative. The UK is in a double-dip recession. There was GBP out this week, which was far worse than anticipated. They expected a minus 0.2% fall, but it was actually minus 0.7%. Which obviously sent the pound falling. Again, short term, we expect the bearish tone to continue. Expect it to maybe make its way down to 150-200, which would be a solid base of expected support. With obviously, like today, the occasional rally or retracement on the back of any little positive news that comes out. But ultimately, we are pretty bearish on the pound dollar at the moment. Will the pound continue to get dragged down in the long term? Long term, again, there's no real reason for us to expect any kind of correction in the downside move. Over the next probably maybe 12 months to 2 years, we could see a breakdown into the 130s. But the pound dollar, interestingly, has been in a range over the past couple of years. If you look at the past 2 years worth of data on a monthly or weekly chart, the pound's actually been ranging between 165 and 15500, just drifting in between those levels. Long term, as it keeps going, we anticipate that to maybe break down to the 130s, which of course be a 3-year low. Do you feel investors have shunned the single currency over concerns of a Spanish sovereign bailout? Yes, definitely. I mean, as those events keep unfolding, I think the main problem here is that the actual situation isn't really hasn't really been completely revealed. So as the news gets worse and as the problems with the banking sector become more apparent, investors lose more and more confidence in those bonds.
Lastly, can you give me your predictions short, mid and long term for the euro Japanese yen?
Yeah, the euro Japanese yen is an interesting pair because, again, what we look for is two currencies that have got contrast. So you've got the euro, which is very weak, and the Japanese yen, which, coming off the back of quite a healthy Japanese economy compared to everything else. Short term for that pair, I mean, I expect it to drop. Any little rallies up will just be retracements driven by profit taking. I expect it to continue lower down to around 9,700. If the price does rally, 9,700 would probably be a ceiling for those rallies. And if it does get up to there, that's where we're going to be looking to jump back in and short it to the downside again. Mid-term, again, price just continues moving lower. Probably expect it to maybe hit the 89 level over the mid-term, probably the next 6 months. And long-term, again, the outlook's very bleak for the euro at the moment. So when compared to a strong currency like the yen, unless the policymakers, as we mentioned before, can come up with a workable solution, we just expect that to keep making lower lows and keep heading down basically over the next 12 to 18 months.
Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Davis, and giving me your opinions. That's all we have time for right now, but click back to the website for more interviews and updates. But for now, have a great weekend. Goodbye.